So there's different types of files.
Didn't have CITA.
CITA as well, yeah, not enough for me. Okay, so basically what we've got here then is we have our 7 trend building with a 4D timeline. We have our focus time running across the top up here. As you can see, what I'm doing is I'm just moving it across to the activity where we have piling rigs going in there. And what I can do is I can go zoom right in and actually see these activities taking place as well. So once I move this along, I can see parts of the building being constructed. So there's our piles have gone in. We're now actually doing an excavation. It's a very tight site as well, so you can see our excavators in there, and you can also see our pile caps, pile beams, and also parts of excavation as well. This is a very tight site actually. This one, I was having a look at this one about a year and a half ago. So as I move the focus time along, you can see excavation, you see tower cranes going in there, and you can also see a berm in there as well. And we can then see pads going in there, lift pits and the like, ground beams. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click play on here, and this is just playing an animation of the actual building being constructed. Okay, so we're just going through the building. Everything in green, as you can see, is being installed as such. Okay, and what I'll do is...
As you see here, there's some arrows. It's very handy for you doing a plan to show the local authority. This is how we're going to bring all our lorries in, how we're going to bring stuff moved around. And we've just developed a process called Pathfinder, where we can move items. As you see, we're bringing a crane, and it's at that point, and then when it goes to another task, we move it to that task. Pathfinder allows us to say, well, I want this item to go from that point to that point along a certain route. And it will path along that, and if there's anything in the way along that route, it will actually flag it up as a clash detection and say, at this time, at this date, you're going to have a clash there when that item goes through. So this could be a train going through on works, so they can plan it so the train goes through at a certain time, and if they're doing other works within the track, they have to make sure it's out of the way, and the clash detection will pick that up. So you don't have to move it step, 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 step from that point to that point, and it will run.
Is that only for temporary works and the loads of trains, or is it for the materials that are fixed?
Anything that's moved, anything that's got to move, you can actually put a path in and say, right, this has got to go from there, there, around this angle, and then it will clash detect it if you've got anything trying to get in the way at that time.
How detailed can you get into clash detection? I mean, some of today's presentation, refer to high-level pictures of projects, but if you actually get down to nitty-gritty, say for a farm project or something like that, does Synchro allow you to get down to any detail for clash detection?
I think, like for example, take a tower crane, like a tower crane out on the site, you get into about 150 mil clash detection, put the tolerance, build a tolerance into the actual software, and it'll actually flag up where the clash is, but obviously.
Something like piping, for instance?
Yes.
Piping, anything like that. But obviously, I think every way, clash avoidance should be done at the architectural stage, that's important, obviously, because once you guys go out on site with all the instruments to actually measure out where everything's going, with their GPS, whatever it is, back to the BIM model, clash avoidance. The only thing that let you down between clash avoidance and clash detection is workmanship. And that's.
Well, we look at clash detection as being, from the buildability point of view, the fact that you've actually got the crane, as you saw the first drawing, the crane was actually coming through the glass roof. That's because we haven't showed you out. But that's where we look at clash detection really within Synchro, to make sure that you've got bits in the right place to do the job. And if the crane hasn't been moved, one of the things, you've got to allow for a tower crane, a lay down here to get it out. So you may within Synchro can plan for that, so that on a certain date that crane's going to be taken down. So if someone's trying to build something there at that time, it'll clash it and say, you can't do that. Now that doesn't come into clash detection that the architects and the mechanical services do to make sure their pipes are ready. But it will do that. It will actually pick those up as well if you set the parameters right. Well, we're mainly looking at it to make sure there's no clashes that will stop the building because something hasn't happened.
I guess my question, thank you. You've answered most of my question, but I guess the main part of the question was, how detailed, how down to how
Well, yeah,
nitty-gritty can you get with Synchro?
Well, they'll actually give you a chart and say that on this day at this time you have a clash, because it might be that if it's something movable, it might be that the train going through only at 2 minutes to 10 on that you're going to have a clash. It will actually tell you that's when the clash occurs.
Has there been any return on investment analysis done on projects using it as opposed to not using it?
I mean, all it takes is clash detection or cash detection, you can call it. I mean, if you detect one clash and you're a contractor pricing the job and you know, this thing is crazy, I've got variations all over the shop, I'll make a fortune if I say nothing. You know, it pays for itself from one clash.
Yeah,
if you're using it for clash
I mean,
detection.
We don't, not aware, we don't have any specific return investments, and Alan's a bit of stream return investment. But as the gentleman at the back there says, you've only got to look at this and say, look, this has just saved me one item, moving the side huts. You know, if you've got it and suddenly realise I've got to move the side huts, it's going to cost you more than £3,500 to move the side huts. So it's saved just on the one project, and hopefully you'll use the same software on a number of projects.
There's always the thorny issue of who owns the model. You know, is it the architect, is it the engineer, is it the contractor? And I think that the power of these models is that you can actually hand them over to a client and say, look, there's your asset.
Yeah.
You know, digitally, there's your asset. You can manage your facility now. What sort of experience do you have with that in regard to using this?
Yeah, that's a question that comes up quite a lot with who owns what and where. And there's quite a big discussion at a BIM meeting I went to quite recently in London. And the government advisor turned around and said, well, if it's a government job, we own it. And of course, it was uproar in the audience.
Paul Morale?
Yes, yes. Paul Morale said, yes, we own it if it's our project. And then all the architects there said, well, no, we designed it, it's our intellectual property. So it's a bit, but what we're looking at is we're taking copies of what they've done.
So if it's the contractor who's purchasing it, it's theirs. Because once you hand it over, you're handing over all of the problems that could be there and potential lawsuits that could be there. So
it's a contractual.
It's a real issue, isn't it?
Yeah, which we don't really get into. You know, there is the fact that with the software we're taking in, from a contractual point of view, the client and the architect have to sort out where we move.
But where are most of your sales? What sector? Is it contractors?
At the moment, yes, the majority go to contractors.
Specialist contractors? I mean, the subcontractors?
Yes. Oh yes, and down to the subcontractors. We have people who do one of the bigger ones in the UK, Kilbray, who are using it.
So not clients then?
Quite often, in the UK, no, most of them are contractors. The clients are saying, we want you to use BIM, which is driving them down the route. But we don't have any clients that actually purchased it. They're driving it and saying, we want BIM, so people come to us.
Would it be fair to say that currently, well, definitely from my perspective in Ireland, you would say that it's somewhat of a selling tool to clients. Clients, like we would have heard, whether they be anecdotal or truthful, I suppose, evidence that an awful lot of people are using it, and including potentially me as a contractor would consider using it more from a selling point, right, rather than from a full functionality tool. And we have seen that occur in terms of competition and it being used at maybe, like you say, tender stage to win a contract and then never be used after. So not used for its functionality purpose. And the fact that it's not in any tender documentation or very few, unless it's put in as a, I believe in Sweden that it's in as there are some governmental requirements that you use under certain contracts. Unless it comes in at tender stage, the contractor is predominantly doing this from a selling perspective more than anything else, not necessarily from a using perspective.
Well, you see, the thing is, like, you know, in a lot of American states now, all their municipalities, especially in Saudi Arabia as well, all gone down the BIM route, like, you know. So as a contractor, and you know, I mean, you know, there's a shallow pool out there, like, you know, to work.
Absolutely.
And you know, for actually to promote yourself as a contractor who knows what he's doing, you know, you can look at it either way. You can either, you know, stand by the side, or you can get involved and, promote your business.
Well, I think in fairness, in that particular perspective, it's the way forward. Clients are becoming more technologically advanced and they like these things. But would you think that one of its major potential benefits would be at the end of the project, in terms of safety files, in terms of
Yep.
facility
Yep.
management?
Big time, because I mean, if you look at a typical project, as the Americans term integrated project delivery, it could be 3 to 4 years, like from design straight down to close out, like. But obviously that model, which Alan touched on about who owns the model, should be the client in my eyes, because he then can tender out that model back to a whole range of specialists to actually say, okay, we need to look at the 7th dimension now, and also look at 6th dimension as well, which is sustainability. Obviously, there's a big retrofit in Ireland now of £1 billion over the next 5 years. But if each building was modelled, then you'd be able to say, well, okay, well, that building needs to be, do you know what I mean? It's a long-term thing. Like the only problem there is that we had at our last meeting when I was at in London, was what are the 3D software vendors doing to maintain that 3D file can go from 2011 up to 2031. Like.
Well, there are laws going to come in terms of software compatibility as well in the EU. So they'd be required to. You're going to have so many competing file forms and lack of compatibility between different projects.
That's right.
Between different software. If it doesn't.
Yeah, I think a lot of these files though will be kept on the cloud as such, and they can be used I mean, there's a big demand now for models to be created. There's a big demand and a half. Contractors can use those models, to actually say to a developer, okay, I want to build this. What size of building are you looking at? They can just, I mean, a model. How long does a model take, John? A model for to win a job. It takes how long does it take? I mean, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Depending on the site, the average for us to take 2D drawings and produce 3D models to use within Synchro, not 3D models to go and build it, but to be able to use for can take a week to 2 weeks depending on the size of the complexity. But we tend to average out about a week.
Is that a service you offer free when you have the package, or is that a service you offer free when you buy the package, or is there a cost?
No, it's a charge. And there's a couple of companies in Ireland that use us, that in our own.
No, I think there's a number of.
They won't be using it for oil.
Just 2 points. There's a number of companies out there that actually, architectural practices have got into BIM and are offering that service to clients. But I think just going back to the point about that was made earlier about usage in Ireland, I think the Republic of Ireland will follow the UK. We always do. Just takes 2 or 3 years. I mean, think about the new contracts that came in.
I mean, to be honest, it's. Even in America, it isn't. It's not widespread. BIM, you imagine that BIM is big in America, but it's not widespread there.
No, but the move by the UK, particularly Paul Morrell, and pushing the whole BIM area, I mean, and making it mandatory for public sector contracts will happen here within, I'd say, 2 to 3 years. So, people like Nicholas O'Loughlin, the architect of the new government contract, is looking at this, and they will bring it in. And so you will start seeing it now in project specifications within, I'd say, 2 to 3 years' time.
I think we need a BIM SAR, as they say, in Ireland. I think somebody who can drive BIM along, like you have Paul Morrell for the UK, and he's touching on BIM. But I think they have to have a BIM SAR in Ireland. Something like Ralph Montague or something like that. Push it along, that's what it needs, because it's efficiency. It's lean construction. It is efficiency as well. Besides safety and all the fancy words I can use.
I think the thing with Paul's statement is. Paul Morrell's statement is that it's actually brought it into the upper echelons of large companies. Whereas we talk to quite a lot of people who are the end users want to use it. When it moves up, there was always a bit of a, well, what's this BIM? Whereas now, because it's being spoken about at higher levels, as they've got through this BIM, they don't get that. People are understanding further up the chain, and we're getting that feedback from them.
You have a second presentation now, is it?
Or not. Sorry.
Excuse me. Just in terms of 3D models, have you ever had experience of anything usually that format as a means of putting in, say, part of a planning application, you know, to show
Impact
scale and height and
Oh, yeah. I mean,
conditions, all that sort of stuff.
as you saw,
But has it been done in the UK, I suppose?
I believe it has, yes.
But widespread, or
Not widespread, but if you
has
look,
it been accepted by the planning authorities as
I can't say 100% yes, but I believe it has. Mainly because you can go in and show how, like the traffic movements. You know, you can actually show them, you know, they have, a lot of the councils, especially in London, have problems with the physically getting the lorries in and out. And you can show this with Synchro, the physical movement and how it's all going to come in. I know it has been used as part of the planning application to say this is how we're going to do it.
it has been used as planning?
Yeah, but I don't know specifics.
And in this country?
I don't know about that.
I imagine it'd be very handy, like, you know, for
Well,
demonstrating it, like, you know.
yeah, maybe.
You know,
Just on the level of initiative you can put on the model and stuff, yeah, I'm not sure how feasible that is.
I think if you do it in alternate, like for example, any motorways, if you be done an AutoCAD Civil 3D, and the cuts and fills could be looked at, say for example you did a cut and it was 4,500 cube, which is pretty much the norm, like, you know, for a motorway, then you could look at how things are going to be taken out. You know, you can get a map of Ireland in Google Earth, and you can actually show that being constructed as well, and when it's going to impinge on a, for example, rivers. Like you have rivers where you have summers and you've got to close down, or you have winter, you know, where you have to close down as well. So I think it definitely has a use.
Okay, so don't send you the motorway.
Sorry?
I've got an AVI that shows what we did for a motorway, which actually shows it all coming and building a bridge and all the different, and actually showing the different layers of the road tarmac being built up, so you can see by the colour code where they were and what lanes we were shutting down to be able to do it. So you can do it, so you've got a total visual indication of the motorway which is being shut, what isn't being shut, and what you've done to it. So,
John, have you got a sample of that on your website that I can show, possibly show to a client?
I haven't got it, I think I've got it on here, so I can speak something.
We'll be sending the presentation to everyone here this morning.
I haven't got that motorway
Yeah.
on.
The motorway one in particular, I think.
I've got it on here, so I'll get it sorted out.
I'll speak to you about it.
Just want to show here, all I'm just demonstrating here is what we call an earned value graph, and this is where we're into 5D. I haven't got many projects on 5D because there's obviously very confidential information on a lot of projects. But what we've got here, this one here, this is only a demonstration. We've got a substructure coming in, superstructure, and we've also got our earned value graph. Okay, so when we start progressing the job on site, we can actually look at the BIM cash flow, for example, for the project as well. So this is what we plan to do, and this is our actual status to date, like, you know. So you can see that the actual that's on the par there, so that's fine, like, you know. But obviously that will start to dip down a bit on the cash flow as such, and that's where the 5D is important, fundamentally important in BIM as well, like, you know, for contractors. So if there is a delay, you can see you will be able to see a dip in the cash flow. The money though is all inserted in these activities up here. All these activities, like, say, for example, demolish a farmhouse, it costs X amount of money, like, you know, that is inputted into the activity, and that's where we can see the actual 5D as such, like, you know. So we did a lot of 4D, that is 5D though. Okay. So just back to the PowerPoint slide. Yeah, there we go again. Accurate 5D earned value analysis reporting resources. We can see our resources in green for the project on site, and then we have our earned value analysis graph as well, okay, for this particular project. So you can see our red is what we plan to do, and actual, you can see there's a bit of a problem there, like, you know. So that is using the fifth dimension.
I don't think it's good at this one. We have another, we have user fields, which allow you to put your own information in, which allows you to create histograms of what that relates to. So we had one company who wanted it to do with scheduling within a site, and it meant they could only have certain things at any one time, so it worked on the size. And they were able to do a graph that showed them exactly what the issue was about their laydown area. If it went above a certain line, they had to reschedule to make sure it kept it below. And that was using the user fields. And the user fields means you can put any information you want in and then create feed information in chart format. And those charts can be exported out to Excel.
Okay, so just looking at the key features and benefits of Synchro, it's focused on construction planning, and also project controls, can use work breakdown structures and activity codes, does reports such as earned value analysis, resource utilization, its ability to create basic 3D models as well, and divide existing 3D models and assign each a separate task when we come back to constructability. And you can also review the impact on cost due to increased task duration. Just as John was saying earlier there, user fields enable you to define company-specific data which can be displayed as a histogram. Creation of AVI animations for distribution to the client or project team. So when you, for example, if you've got a monthly progress report, you can actually do a plan versus actual to the client as well. And when he walks on the site, you can see a nice video there, and you can see a building going up or not. Spatial coordination detects logistic and hard clashes as well. Okay. And also external data links from task. Supports most CAD formats, including IFC. Benefits of Synchro: clear communications in real time, side-by-side scenario analysis displayed graphically. You can troubleshoot and optimize the delivery approach as well, as in terms of logistics. You can take in a Primavera, Astra and MS project, so-called round-trip data synchronization, so you can do import and export. And support a distributed delivery team and an integrated supply chain as well. Okay, so the software licenses for Synchro is a Synchro Professional, which provides a complete standalone 4D construction simulation and project scheduling for comprehensive virtual construction simulation. The Viewer as well. And then we have the database module, which Synchro DM brings in greater hardware and independence of the 4D construction scheduling community using existing standard PCs. And then we also have the server version as well. Okay, so those are the 4 different
Can you
types.
just explain the third one a little more, please?
The
Can I do that?
The database one.
We realised some time ago that we use 3D models, so that our product is quite memory hungry when it's moving around. And it looked as if we were getting to the point that every time we want a new release, we all had to go out and buy bigger and bigger machines. So we looked at it, well, this can't go off. So we started to build in capability to try and reduce the load. The first thing which is actually built in, we use something called Frustra. Frustra means crumb, which means that when you're looking at a 3D model within Synchro, if you can't see it, it is taken out because it's hidden. If you look at any 3D model, I would say a good third cannot be seen at any one time because it's hidden. So instead of having it still loaded in there, it was removed out. But then when we realised that when you take the model, then you take the size of your Primavera files. I mean, some Primavera project files now go up to 100,000, 200,000 line items. They're massive. Again, we realised that you're not seeing all this at one time. So we have, if you have that size of file, we have an add-on product, which is a database product, which actually throws it into the memory, so that when you need it, it pulls it straight back. But it's not there all in one go, clogging it up. So we made it so that it's not so hardware independent. So that you don't have to go and buy a 5-6 grand PC to use it on. You'll use normally a standard. It's not a bulk standard PC. Realise it's using CAD, so it's got to have the functionality and the graphics, but it doesn't have to be really high level because we built this capability, so it wasn't hardware dependent.
What is the typical file size for projects in Synchro?
Over 200 megabyte.
Yeah.
200 meg.
Yeah, the last one did was a 100 meg. Yeah, I took off. I've just got Ralph to send me one, and there was 100 meg IFC. Yeah, very detailed as well,
And some of these Primavera files, when they can be big, and we needed to find a way of moving it into memory if we wanted it, and this is what we've done.
Just showing a few videos here. One is a shard in London. Mesa doing this one now, John?
Yes.
So, would construction management companies like Mace be big users of this?
Yes. It is. So people like your Mace, that's why they've signed an agreement with us, so they can use it corporately. They're going to roll it out on every project. signed it last week. And some construction companies like Layer Rock have got a corporate deal. And some other companies have actually got a significant number.
How interoperable is this system with Tekla, with Revit, with ArchiCAD, Vico? Can they talk to each other?
In what way do you mean talk?
If you have,
we can take
if
a
you have a
technical drawing.
contractor, say Mace, who has Synchro, and he sends, I don't know, a file to TechReach here in Ireland who are manufacturing and fitting the cladding.
Yeah.
But Tekla have, I don't know, they use Tekla, say. Can the systems talk to each other?
Well, you can bring in a Tekla file. I mean, it won't, not the, you know, you can take the Tekla drawings.
Or an IFC.
An IFC format into Synchro, and then we use this as done.
So Mace are not saying to their supply chain, thou shalt use, if you want to work with us, you must use this package. Or are they?
Well, I mean, we can't bring in the Tekla equivalent. They've got a sort of equivalent link in the schedule, but we can bring in the Tekla IFC file, which is, and bring it into Synchro.
Because you have interoperability with, as you say, Microsoft Office, with Asta, with you know, planning packages. Why don't you have true interoperability with other BIM packages?
Well, Synchro is model agnostic. It doesn't matter what you're using. You can get it into IFC and bring it in that way. I mean, that's the same as most other BIM applications. I mean, with Revit you can export an IFC and bring that into Tekla, or you can export
Synchro is not a BIM tool. You don't design with it.
Very simply, shapes as such. I don't know. But it isn't a design tool.
You're a true interoperable.
It's a third party software.
Okay, so you can use if the architect is using or the contractor say has purchased, I don't know, Autodesk Revit, and they are putting together a design and build project with an architect, say, they can use Synchro to sit on top of or alongside that BIM design package. Is that right? To allow them to do the 4 and the
That's right.
5D.
You can bring their whatever they're drawing in 3D, you can bring it into Synchro. And if one company is using Bentley and the other one's using Revit, and somebody else is using Google SketchUp, we can bring all those in their file formats into Synchro. As long as you can sort out the database line, but you can bring in different file formats into Synchro and build them together in a 3D model. They don't all have to do it in IFC, or they all have to do it in...
But you still see the other vendors, the other BIM vendors as competitors as such. I mean, Tekla's the Revit's the...
No, we don't see Revit as a competitor.
It's complementary to your
complementary,
business.
Good. Revit produce 3D models and they put schedules in, but they don't do it the same as we do.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Because we have with the master's degree, we have a project coming up next September called the Integration Project, and we're going to use this IPD logic in it. And the challenge would be to give the students models in different formats, but to interoperably deal with these systems.
The key to that, the IPD stage, is constructability. Everything has to be constructible. Because it all goes back down to cost, you know. And you obviously, you know, when you're building things constructively, like obviously you go back to the concrete slab again.
Yeah.
The concrete slab, say 3,000 cube. You're not going to pour that in the middle of Dublin in one day, like, you know. You'd be hard pushed. So that's why you have to look at, you know, constructability in its true format. Because obviously constructability, once things come in constructability, you can use them in the other dimensions as well. And that's the thing about IPD. But obviously, you know, the contract needs to be set up correctly. And also I talk about the BIM execution plan, how you execute BIM as well, through from design level straight down to from conception to demolition, basically, like, you know. But obviously, IPD stage would be conception to handover.
My final question, sorry, would be: would you provide this to third level colleges free to students? You do. And is it like an expiry license, like some where, you know, 4 years time it suddenly?
No. We actually give it to either the university who are responsible for issuing these licenses to the students, and at the end of the term they have to take them back and reissue them.
Is that project that easier?
Huh?
That project he's doing that easier.
Well, that's it. They could give it to the students.
Well, in fairness, we've checked, we've read, we can download Revit from the US, so it'd be great to get that. The problem is maybe the hardware, we have a DIT struggling sometimes with.
But if they happen to use Revit, then the machines could use that, then they'll have to Synchro will work.
It's just a, is this a demonstration, John, we were discussing before about the road?
So Matthew, you finishing half 9 or is there?
I think,
Oh yeah.
if any questions and answers,
Yeah.
basically, I think, you know, anybody want to fire any more at me?
Yeah.
Besides the rugby.
And to John, I suppose, as well. I operate a small company that helps firms with tendering and also with their planning and scheduling and the delay analysis. I've known Matthew for over a year now, and I've brought Synchro into companies and shown it to them. They loved it. The sticking point, aside from the significant cost, we'd say, on that particular item, apart from that, the cost that really jumped out at me that people were concerned about was the cost of the 4D and 5D model. And because it's, okay, there's a set cost in Synchro that's tangible. You don't really know what you're going to pay for it to get a 4D or a 5D model done to help you enable Synchro. Now, obviously in the UK you've had that challenge before, or companies have had that challenge before, so how do people address that, right? What would be your response to that issue? Say?
As I said earlier, we realised this some time ago that without 3D models, so we set up our own group of people. We have a group which actually will do the service, will take the 2Ds and create 3D models suitable for doing the visualisation and to doing the scheduling. Obviously we have to charge for it.
You being Synchro?
Synchro, yeah.
Right.
We have a group of people with Revit and everything like that. We will produce these models so people can use them. So using Synchro to do the timeline. Now, as this has progressed, it's quite often happens, we've dealt with large companies, and we've done this all, and then they suddenly realise that down in another part of the country we've got a 3D modelling group that they didn't know about. So a lot of the larger companies suddenly realise they have the capability. So gradually they develop it. But with small companies, obviously, if you haven't got it, then we can offer it. But I know, you offer the 3D version.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
in EIN. So
I did start out, you know, I mean, I took myself, like, you know, on some simple stuff, like, you know, I mean, you know, I used to use things like Google SketchUp, like, you know, but it hasn't got the oomph, it hasn't got, you know, what contractors need. I mean, you know, it is, like, discussing about, like, it is an integrated approach to everything, like, you know. Like, the way I take it is, I know the 3D modelling software is out there, and the structural engineering, like David does a Tekla, and, you know, we do the Synchro and stuff, but I also looked at the estimating software as well. So, because obviously contractors use the BIM estimating. Now, as regards to quantity takeoff, the thing I want to discuss about in one of the next meetings is actually show quantity takeoff on BIM models using quantities as such, like, you know, because obviously that's what contractors use, and then we can create a program from that quantity takeoff as long as it's constructible. It's all down to constructability, like, you know, and that's where a lot of, you know, problems I find with the likes of some BIM companies in London is that within our guild, the International Guild of Project Planning, Controls and Delivery, we find that in the BIM arena, there's two types of 4D. There's the architect's 4D, and then there's the contractor's 4D, as such, like, you know. So that's where costs come in. But if it comes out as one 4D hit, that, you know, you're getting rid of half the cost, like, you know. But planners, project controllers in the construction trade are the people to look at constructability along with project managers. But planners think logically how it should be built, and that's where they think in 4D and 5D. And I think in the future, personally, what we'll find a lot of is more BIM project managers. In America, I know I've got a friend from WIT, a guy called John Doyle, and John's gone out into I can't remember the name of the company now, and he was just snapped up like that because he knew about BIM, and his dissertation was on BIM as well. He came to one of my Synchro courses, and you know, they've just taken it out. Highly in demand, though, you know, highly in demand. BIM specialist, like, you know.
I guess really, just to go back to the original question was, I find if I'm trying to sell a synchro to somebody as a tool, I can't sell it alone. I have to sell synchro plus 4D and 5D.
Yeah.
And that's I found is the sticking point.
Yeah.
That has been a barrier for me. So
Yes.
You need a model.
yes.
You got to have a model. It doesn't welcome to it.
I said, I mean, we, like, Octops, Markham, we started to address that problem. Like, for all of this BIM stuff to work, you need a model. So, I mean, we started specifically 2 years ago to get models, to produce models for contractors, architects, engineers, so we can get into this stuff, because the 2D drawings is doing nothing anyway. I would say, ironically enough, that on most projects there is a 3D model there, but it doesn't obviously get until the steel detailing, concrete detailing stage with the precasters. Most of the steel firms and a lot of the precast firms are now building 3D models, you know, as part of their standard design process. Obviously, if you know, in terms of the planning and the project planning point of view, it does need to start earlier in the piece to be able to really use it for that project plan.
You're not doing mechanical services when you're doing 3D for ages.
Yeah.
Have Python all that.
It's all right. I mean, that is really nice at the very end. That's one of the issues on the cost protection side, is getting a 3D MEP model earlier. It's very difficult because they're really not a lot of the time fairly late on in the process.
But it's also because designers are now also handing over an awful lot more to in fairness, specialists, you know, or they're not handing them over and not taking, you know yourself, and now with temporary work design and specialist work design, and that engineers are handing over the structure, steel and connection detail designs to and so are clearly, you know, glazing manufacturers. They're all doing their own. So to be fair, you know, an awful lot of the design teams don't want to do it, and until the subcontractors are actually appointed, there's no compunction for anybody to bother doing it.
Well,
It's more expensive.
Yeah, it's getting to the stage now where, I mean, engineering firms, Arup, for example, have actually issued a native technical model with a tender package to the contractors. So an engineering model with some connection design in there has been handed out as part of the package, and just trying to get the contractors to then use that. We're finding to be...
But companies that use BIM or become proficient in BIM will have the edge on others. That's the key point. I mean, you mentioned, Matthew, about one of our students. We have a master's degree in DIT. That's not selling a course here, but we have a number of master's degrees. We've one on construction cost management that specialises in M&E. And at the heart of the course is BIM, right from the very start, and companies like Graphisoft and Autodesk, Daytech and Cork and Tectra in the UK. And it's great to see Steve and Dave over from the UK. Big effort to come over this morning and given the students free software. And 4 students got work through BIM. And by putting it on their CV, by talking about it in the interviews, they brought that knowledge into the businesses. And that's just demonstrable proof that they have the edge on the other students. And actually, Daytech organised to train, if I'm not right, John, 4 students last year down in Cork, and all those 4 students now working, and I think as a direct result of what Daytech did for those students, you know. So that's it, you know. Students now have to have an edge, you know. Yeah. It's coming very close to 9:30. If I could, unless there's any burning questions, I'd like to wrap up.
There seems to be a lot of confusion between the definition of BIM. What I've seen today are visualization models as opposed to BIM models. I've mentioned Google, I've heard people talking about Google SketchUp. I've heard people talking about taking a 2D drawing and generating a 3D model. And in my opinion, like that's not BIM, that's a visualization tool.
Yeah.
And there's only are people hearing the same thing as me? Or are people clear what BIM is, doing information modeling is, as opposed to generating a visualization tool?
Well, I mean, BIM is supposedly it's a term that's it can be abused, yeah. But I mean, a BIM tool to me is any integrated CAD package where you can actually get dynamic data from it. You can't get dynamic data from a 2D file, but you can with 3, 4, 5, 6 ND files, yeah. So it means different things to different people, I think. But the concept of BIM has been around for over a decade now, you know. So, but we're, as usual, we're just catching up with this industry's just catching up. If I may, I'd like to wrap the meeting up and to, on behalf of the board of CITA, to thank, and indeed the CITA team and the wider CITA membership, to thank the presentation this morning from Matthew and John. They were truly excellent, and thank you for the big effort you made. You really hit the spot. And what was very refreshing about the presentation was the interoperable nature of the solution that you have. I could stand here and talk about, you know, the benefits of you as small businesses becoming members, but the fundamental point about joining network is not necessarily about the events or the tech checks and the services we provide, which are important, but it's the fact that we are stronger together than separately. If we can build a strong network with the Alliance, we can then talk to people like John and drop that price, cut that price, and get cheaper software and get cheaper that's a matter of fact. This is our 10th year now, and we have a big hill to climb. This year is very critical for the Alliance because in October the funding ceases for EIN. Now we're hopeful that we'll be able to extend the project, but over the next month we're going to have to apply to DIT or to EIN or to Enterprise Ireland for an extension, and we're going to have to show them what progress we've made in the last 24-30 months. And one of the key issues is membership, and we need lots of members. We need 290 to be exact to reach our target for this year. We're sitting around about 140, 150. I hope after this morning we've got 170, because I think there's 20-25 companies in here that we haven't met before, and I hope that we can maybe sell to you the idea that by joining us for less than 20 euros a month, that we can help your business by way of networking, by way of offering you discounted software, discounted training, access to free software that you might not be aware of, and by allowing a consultant to talk to you at no charge to you, giving you advice as to how proficient you are in the use of your IT in your business. This next month we're hoping to have a meeting here, and it's a meeting about effective collaboration for construction SMEs. Now, many of you might have heard of extranets, but there's one particular dynamic one we've come across in recent months, which is Wobius. And Wobius is a particular software solution that's been developed in the UK by a chap called Bob Long, who's an architect, and they reckon they have 2,000 users. Now, this is a hub that allows companies forces businesses to communicate with their clients within an electronic environment. So you're emailing, you're transferring information within this hub. And the whole idea of that is that you then capture all that knowledge and you have an audit trail in regard to the project. So hopefully Wobius will be coming over here, and they'll also bring in with them an Irish client who's using it. And this is affordable software for SMEs. You can get up to 1 gig free. But you know, we have no problems in CITA allowing vendors to speak to members, because that's the whole idea that you know, that you're getting this additional information. Now in May, which is our members meeting, we're going to be not far from here, down in the new Science Gallery in TCD, and the subject is translating dynamic facility management data through BIM. And this, so we're going to be DAA will be talking about their T2 project. Hopefully we'll have Vincent's Private Hospital will be talking as well, and we've got a number of other interesting speakers also at the event. So that might interest vendors and you as clients, because FM is obviously a very important area. I can't finish without plugging our master's program. A number of students are here this morning, and they've just finished a very tough module, is that right? On virtual construction, construction planning and scheduling, which was just what you were doing this morning, was actually extracting, you know, time schedules and cost information from models. So, you know, we're actually doing this with the students, and this program is now available free to people who are unemployed, and a heavily discounted fee for people who are also, you know, in the employment arena. And you can also take the modules in isolation, fully accredited by DIT, and can be done online. So you can
Sorry,
do
Gavin, just to clarify,
Yeah.
for other products, it's not free, there's a very substantial discount though for
Okay, so
on the MSC on this particular
Okay.
segment.
but we have also applied for LMA funding, which is labour market activation funding, which would be free
If we
if we get it. Yeah.
in September.
Okay, so just before we finish up, then there is a meeting. I think Ralph Montague has been ploughing a lonely furrow in some respects over the last number of months, but we're setting up a CITA bin group, and we're having a meeting. Can we have a coffee first?
Yeah.
But anyone is interested in coming on board, I mean, this is the group that could lobby the Irish government for mandatory use of bin. You know, so these groups are very important, and I know, Ralph, you've got an online resource. But if some of you are looking for further information on bin, you know, the CITA bin group would be the group to use. We've also got a LinkedIn group set up, and so on and so forth. But you know, before I finish, I just wanted to say that CITA are doing a lot on behalf of its members. I mean, only in recent months or weeks, we applied, along with another 15 other companies in Ireland, including the CISCs and the larger companies, to set up a new construction industry innovation competence centre through Enterprise Ireland. And now, we don't know, but if we get it, that will be the first time that, you know, monies can be directed at research in this particular area. So, you know, and every time we apply for this funding, if we have more and more companies on our member list, it just makes us stronger as a network. So, you know, I really do hope that you spread the word as well to other SMEs who might want to become part of this network in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think we have further coffee and tea, don't we? And we'll send you all the presentations and notify you of the next meeting.